Students, in lesson 7.5, we are going to be comparing fraction factors and products. Our essential question for this lesson is, how does the size of the product compare to the size of one factor when multiplying fractions? So we're going to start with the real world, unlock the problem. Multiplication can be thought of a resizing one number by another number. For example, 2 times 3 will result in a product that is 2 times great as 3, which is a key translation of what the actual math means. So what it says is what happens to the size of the product when the number by a fraction is multiplied by a fraction rather than a whole number. And we know that a fraction, boys and girls, is less than a whole number, so that's what we're going to explore in today's lesson. So way 1, it says to use a model. So let's start here with, during the week, the Smith family ate 3/4 of a box of cereal. So we're going to shade the model to show 3/4 box of cereal. So we see this is the whole box, and we know that the Smith family ate 3/4. So that would be 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. Next, it says write an expression for 3/4 of one box. Well, we know the word of prompts us to think about multiplication. So 3/4 of one box would be 3/4 times 1. And the next one says, will the product be equal to, greater than, or less than 1? So boys and girls, we know that the product will be less than 1. And we can look and we see that this whole represents 1, and we don't have enough yet to fill up that whole box, so we know that our answer is going to be less than 1. So in step B, we're going to talk about the Ling family. The Ling family has 4 boxes of cereal. They ate 3/4 of all the cereal during the week. So there's 1 box, 2 box, 3 box, 4 boxes. So in each of the boxes, they ate 3/4. So we're going to do 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. So now it says, write an expression for 3/4 of 4 boxes. As a math detective, when you hear the word of, it's prompting you to think multiplication. And we can see that because it's represented. There are 4 boxes, and of the 4 boxes, they are, let me make sure that's nice and clean. Of the 4 boxes, 3/4 of each box got eaten. Now it says, will the product be equal to, greater than, and less than 1? So what we can do is we could say, if we compare, we can see that we want to make sure if it's going to be equal to, greater than, or less than 4. For this one, we would say the product is less than 4. And if we count it up, boys and girls, we say 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. 4/4 is equal to 1 whole. Let's keep counting. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. That's another 4, and that's another set. Lastly, we'll count 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. That's another set of 4, which is equal to 1. We know that 1 plus 1 plus 1 is equal to 3, and we know that 3 is less than 4. So when we add up the sum of these, we get 3, so we know that our product is going to be less than 4. Now we're going to go on to the last example about the Carter family. The Carter family has only 1/2 of a box of cereal at the beginning of the week. They ate 3/4 of 1/2 of the box. So they actually don't have a full box of cereal, boys and girls. They only have half of it left. So it says, shade the model to show 3/4 of a half box of cereal. So we know that at the beginning of the week, boys and girls, half of the box is left. That's all that they have left. So if we go on to step 2, we're going to shade 3/4 of that. So if we look here, There are 4 pieces, but we're going to actually shade only 3 of the 4 pieces. So boys and girls, if we circle that, we see that we have 3 pieces. So it says, write an expression to show 3/4 of a half box of cereal. Well, we know that of again means multiply, and what we're doing is we're multiplying 1/2 in blue by 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. And our answer here, boys and girls, is 1, 2, 3, 3/8. Now, it says, will the product be equal to, greater than, or less than a half? Now, boys and girls, we know that halfway to 8 would be 4, and we know that we have less than that. We only have 3/8. So we would say the product will be less than either factor. Now, boys and girls, we're going to complete another way to solve similar problems. So in this way, we're going to use a diagram, and that's why we're going to use these number lines here. It says you can use a diagram to show the relationship between the products when a factor is multiplied or scaled, which is another way to say resized by a number. So it says graph a point to show 3/4 scaled by 1, 1/2, and 4. So what we're going to do, boys and girls, is we're going to look at our number line. We're going to say 1. We have 1 whole. And within that 1 whole, we have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4. Now we quite yet don't have 4/4. We have 3/4. So we're going to plot that number on the number line. And what we're going to do is we're going to start from 0 to 3/4. And it says think. Locate 3/4 on the diagram and then shade that distance from 0. So that distance from 0, boys and girls, is our answer. Then graph a point to show 1 of 3/4. So 1 of 3/4 is 3/4, and that makes sense because the identity property of multiplication says 1 times any number is that self number. Now the next problem we have is 1/2 times 3/4. So it says think, locate 3/4 on the diagram. Again, 3/4 on the diagram is almost 1 whole, but not quite, because 1 whole would be 4/4. So it says shade the distance from 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to shade the distance from 0. And then it says graph a point to show 1/2. So if we say what is half of that, halfway would be in the middle of those 2 points. So it's in the middle. I'm going to change this to be a darker color so you can see. It's going to be in between a 1/4 and a 1/2. So that's what our answer is going to lie for that one. The last one, step C, it says think, locate 3/4 on the diagram. So what we're going to do is we're going to locate 3/4 on the diagram. Again, 3/4 is here on the diagram, and we are going to shade the distance from 3/4 to 0. And then it shows, oh, I'm sorry, boys and girls, in the previous problem, the distance from 0 to that point is our answer. And then finally, boys and girls, we're going to go on to the last one. Now we're going to count. Students, in this last example, on example C, what we're going to do is we're going to, again, just check to see that we graphed 3/4 here. And remember, it's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. So we located 3/4 on the diagram, and we shaded that distance from 0. So we shaded from 0 to 3/4. Then it says graph the point to show 3/4 times 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 4 sets of 3/4. So you'll see when we start here, we have 3/4, and then we count 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. We count again. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. One-fourth, 2/4, 3/4. And our answer that we come up with is 3. So the using the diagram of the number line is a little bit more challenging, but remember on each of these examples, example A, example B, and example C, we found 3/4 originally. So for each of these boys and girls, we located 3/4 and we shaded from 0 to 3/4, and this is our answer for the number 1. For here we found 3/4. And then what we did was we chopped 3/4 in half, and we got the answer of 3/8. And then for the last one, we found 3/4, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and we plotted that point in the line, we shaded to 0, and then what we did is we counted 4 sets of 3/4. 1 set of 3/4, 2/4, 3, 4 sets. So in the last one, our answer would give us 3. So we are going to complete the statements with equal to, greater than, or less than. So the product of 1 and 3, boys and girls, will be equal to 1/3, because 1/4. 1 times 3/4 is equal to 3/4. Next, the product of a number less than 1 and 3/4 will be less than 3/4 and less than the other factor. And number 3, the product of a number greater than 1 and 3/4 will be greater than 3/4 but less than the other factor. So boys and girls, the big common error in this particular sort of lesson is that sometimes students can confuse which factor they're comparing to the product. So 8 times 7/8 is one of our examples, okay? So this is our common error example. Some students might confuse when they're comparing. So some might say that the product of this will be greater than 8. But that's not the case, boys and girls, because we know that if you have a whole number multiplied by a fraction, it will be less than the whole number, but it will be greater than 7/8. So this student would have to say that the product would be greater than 7/8, but less than 8 wholes. So in this particular lesson, I think the most challenging one is going to be using the diagram. I think we all are pretty comfortable with the models, but if the diagram and using the number line and resizing and rescaling the numbers is difficult for you, make sure you focus on that one during your lesson. And remember, your benchmarks of 0, 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and 1 are going to really help you, because that's what each section of the number line is broken down into.